So what to plant in a raised garden bed? So guys, before I show you my garden beds and we check out what's currently growing, let me run you down what I usually plant. So here's what I plant in autumn for the winter harvest. I have some beetroot, carrots, coriander, kale, kohlrabi, leek, lettuce, mint, oregano, onion, parsley, parsnip, radish, rosemary, sage, shallot, silver beet, spinach, thyme, and turnips. Some of these are planted from seed, so you will not see them sprouted yet, but believe me, they are in there somewhere. And I think when all of this starts growing, it's going to be a pretty big bloody forest, so I'll make sure that I get my camera out for you guys and show you how it all looks like. So vegetables that I like to harvest during summer but I plant during spring are tomatoes, peppers, eggplants, different types of greens, pumpkins, watermelons, cantaloupes, honeydews, corn, silver beet, beetroot, potatoes, broccoli, carrot, celery, chili, lettuce, snow peas, sunflower for the birds, spring onion, and zucchini. Now I'm sure I forgot a few little sneaky ones, but I think I got most of them. So when I say I like to plant different and weird things, I mean I like to plant all the different varieties of the vegetables that we know and love, perhaps like the heirlooms, that are just simply not available at the shops or just way too expensive. Well, I see that a few people have been Googling this, so I thought I'd make a quick video about it. There's a number of things that I have planted in my garden bed, not necessarily something that you might have planted in yours, only because depending on various different facts, and I suppose one would be your climate. Our climate is a little bit different. It's a little bit cool now, it's almost winter, so we might have a few sort of different things that we plant. It really just depends on the season. At the moment, most of the things that I have in my garden beds are going to be greens, and let's have a look at some now. So in this garden bed I have kale planted, and I think kale is a great thing to put in your garden bed, basically because you can either cook it or you can make smoothies out of it. It's a pretty versatile plant and it has a lot of nutrients. Now it doesn't look too good at the moment, looks pretty eaten by the bugs. I don't really care. Yeah, as long as there's a little bit left for me, I'm pretty happy, but some people might either spray this or put some slug pebbles or something on the bottom, which basically means that slugs don't get to it. But you can YouTube all these different ways of getting rid of these slugs and such. Let's go to a few other garden beds. In this particular garden bed here we have some celery and quite a lot of celery by the looks of it. What I might do is I might actually cut that in about half, so it just grows new leaves.
I was trying to tell you there, but you were doing this, so I was like, how can I tell you? I'm going to get a coffee. Would you like one?
Yeah, give me a coffee.
I'm going to keep a little bit of the door open for the baby.
Our baby doesn't walk just yet.
Yeah, just for the baby.
Alright, so that was celery. Now let's get on to moving on to my other garden bed. Alright, garden bed number 2. Alright, so this is my second garden bed and I've got a bunch of things planted here. As you can see, mostly greens. I do have some peppers and I do have some flowers. Now the reason why I put flowers in there is basically so that it attracts nice insects and so forth that will pollinate the rest of my vegetables. But just give you a bit of a closer look here. There you go. Alright, moving on to my second garden bed. There you go. Well, I suppose in this particular garden bed it's similar to the second one. So in here we've also got some parsley and looks like some tomatoes coming out. The tomatoes are pretty much going to be mulched because they just simply can't grow. They really can't have them in this weather. At the moment today it's quite nice, but it'll be pretty cold pretty soon. So we'll get rid of that pretty soon as well. And then my recent garden bed that I have, I've got some onions planted here, some silver beet and a bunch of other stuff, and I think we've got a bunch of beets and so forth in there as well. But looks pretty good. It looks pretty green. All of this sort of stuff was planted basically just with seeds. I've got a bunch of stuff, and look, I like planting things that are very close together. So you'll see I've got some onions there. So this is onions here, tomatoes, which all do is pull that out because that doesn't really even can't even grow now. Beets and so forth. I'll plant all of this together and hope that all of it grows, and the stuff that doesn't grow I'll just pull it out, and the stuff that does, good on it. I find that if you plant more things you've got more chance, and it's just, you know, like, not everything is going to be super big and super good, but it really doesn't have to be. We're after a little bit of everything, not a massive bunch of just one particular vegetable. We go to another garden bed here. Now this particular garden bed is solely for my spring onions. So as you can see, there's spring onions there. Now I planted some other onions just as seeds. I just threw a bunch of seeds in there, so you can see a bunch of other onions sort of growing amidst that. And I just usually just use it as green onions. I just pull it out just when it's young like this, and either chop it up, use it in salad, or eat it just as is, or cook it, but it seems to be pretty good. Okay, let's go to my last raised garden bed. As you can see, there's actually quite a few things planted there, but it looks still pretty empty. That's basically because I have decided to plant things by seeds, and I love my onions, so I planted a lot of onion, but I've got a lot of beets and things in here too, as you can tell, and I eat a lot of that, so it's pretty good. And we've got a bunch of other stuff here, some more kale there, beetroot, we've got some beetroot there as well, spinach and so forth, so that's good. And we're going down this particular one here, so this is a sort of a middle one out of the lot. I planted like all of these here. They're just a bunch of flowers there that I'm just going to use as the edging essentially. So when I look from inside the house, it produces some nice flowers. But amidst that, I've planted a bunch of other things, like as you can see, there's that little bit of onion there. So I can't really decipher what's onion and what's leek. I planted both, and both seem to be growing quite well. I can't remember which one I planted where. And then we've got some other things such as lettuce all the way at the back there, and we just harvest these loose lettuce, so we just pick the leaves whenever we need to, and that's good. It keeps us entertained for long enough. And then we've got a bunch of other things here too, mainly silver beet, and I need to actually redo this bed, mainly because I want to pull out all the beetroot. I want to leave the silver beet in there, I think that's alright, but we've got a lot of wasted space, so I want to just add a few more bits and pieces to it. And just while we're at it, there was this thing here, which is lettuce, and that was over this pot, and it kept on, you know, sort of putting its seeds in there. Now this pot that has my feijoa tree has a bunch of lettuce inside, which we basically just harvest whenever we need some lettuce in the salad. And just going on by these pots here, my pepino plant is going pretty well. As you can tell, there's a little pepinos there, and there's another one over there. I don't know, it's probably produced 10 pepinos in a little pot like this. You really can't complain with the amount of pepinos. I've never actually had a pepino, so for me it's going to be pretty exciting. I suppose that's what I have planted in my raised bed garden, but you can plant whatever you want. I mean, really, there's absolutely nothing stopping you from planting whatever the hell you want. Now, one tip, I planted a cherry tree. I planted a cherry tree in my raised bed garden. Now, the reason why I did that was basically because cherry trees don't like to have wet roots, and what they say is it doesn't like to have too much water, and it needs a bit of runoff. So, but it obviously needs water to survive. So I've got it planted in a raised bed garden, which obviously has enough water and keeps it wet, but it doesn't, you know, the water just doesn't sit there, so it sort of tends to run off, which is good. Yeah, so that's pretty much my garden beds. I suppose there's a couple of other things that I'll be planting pretty soon. I've got some onions which I want to put. I do have enough onions, I must say, but we actually go through quite a lot of onions, and we go through a lot of silver beet. I think we need to start really churning away at the celery, because the celery is just overgrown, and we just need to start cooking things with celery and start using it as soon as possible. And we still have a few peppers which we're gonna eventually sort of get rid of, and just cook that as well. Now, the whole reason why you want to have a raised bed garden like this is so that you can one, keep it sort of off the ground if you've got pets and things like that, which is pretty much why I've done it in such way. And also, I think over time you can actually, at the moment you can see that the wood is only one level, but because I practice mostly non-dig gardening methods, so I don't dig anything out of the garden, I just add materials on the top. So what that means is basically I'll need to sort of add levels to this garden as I add more organic material, and all my organic material comes from basically the organic material that I develop myself, and that's basically just from so as you can see there, that's all my organic material right there, and that's basically just what I have from my garden. When we go and do food shopping, and if there's things left over, I chuck it in there, and it really helps the raised garden beds, because the raised garden beds, obviously, you need to build up the soil, and it needs to be very organic and very rich, for the reasons that you actually want to make sure that your plants have enough food, and it needs to have a lot of wetting agents to make sure that the plants are actually receiving the right amount of moisture and so forth. Because if you just have normal soil in your raised garden beds, I think the potential of the actual soil drying out is quite high. And then obviously, you're going to have to water it a lot more often. Like this, if you've got things like that, yes, it looks a little bit ugly in the backyard, but the whole purpose of it is that you'll be able to then, at the end of the year, within 6 months, let's say, have some really nice rich soil which you can then, or nice rich organic matter which you can then add to your particular garden, and really helps to build that up. I mean, during summer this is just going absolutely crazy in comparison to if I just had normal soil in here. And yeah, so that's pretty much it for the raised garden and what you can plant inside. The sky is the limit, really, when it comes to that. And really the only limitation is your imagination. So get out there, plant something. These raised garden beds, you can even get them at Bunnings and other hardware shops for quite cheap. I think I got one of mine for 35 bucks, and for $35 it's this one here. It can't be any better than what it is. I've got two, so it's 75 bucks. I've got a bunch of kale. I reckon just the kale itself, it's paid itself off. Plus, I've got some onions here and all that sort of stuff. And you pick it fresh. I mean, you can really divide this in 4, and you can have, a bunch of things, probably 8 different, I'd say you can probably have 8 different plants in these 2 little garden beds. So get out there and plant something, and write in the comments how many garden beds do you have. So far I've got a fair few square meters. I think, let's say 2, 4, 6, probably 20 square meters, and I definitely want to have more. I reckon I'd also want to build some more garden beds. So that fence all over there, that's all going to be raised garden beds. All of this here is going to be raised garden beds for the moment. So yeah, I'm going to definitely be adding a few more. I think there's definitely a few more as I'm slowly starting to understand how plants grow, as I'm slowly starting to understand what the best ways of doing things are. As I fail and I learn and I do it again and over and over and over, I think the past 2-3 years has taught me a lot, and I think now I'm sort of ready to even introduce a little bit more, and a lot of our family members actually do come and pick a lot of the vegetables that we have, and I think it's you know, it's something that gets people together, and I think it's something great. So if you've got a garden bed, let me know, and yeah, let me know how big it is. I want to know how big your garden bed is and what you plant in your garden bed. I want to see what other things I could be planting that I'm not planting. And if you in particular, I'm interested in weird things, like something that not everyone has, and that's what I try planting, essentially something that is either expensive at the shops or it's hard to get. And those are the type of things that I would encourage you to plant in there, alongside things that you actually enjoy eating. That's the most important thing. Plant things that you enjoy eating. Celery, wherever the hell it is, where is it? Celery over there. We enjoy eating it, but honestly, the way that it's grown, we can't actually eat as much as it's bloody growing. Anyway, I'll sign off here, and I'll see you in the next episode. See you later, guys. Bye.